Life, like the conversation, keeps changing. Get the first ever needs-matched life insurance that changes as your life changes.
Welcome to another lockdown edition of the Dan Nicholl Show with Bright Drop. We're still in lockdown. We're not in studio yet, but the flip side of not being in studio is we do get to catch up with guests from all over the world. A little later on the show, we're in London to speak to Kevin Pietersen, self-proclaimed greatest amateur golfer on earth. We'll find out how he's doing in lockdown. And we will also speak to Andrii Shevchenko, who tells us not just about the world of football, but also the world of golf, because he is a very devoted and passionate golfer, which makes our first guest this evening an appropriate person to start with, because we finally got to see some golf on SuperSport over the weekend with the COVID-19 challenge match. A very good evening, Mr. Ernie Els.
Good evening to you, Dan, and it's a good afternoon. Yeah, thankfully we still got the whole day left of sunlight.
Were you amongst the many golf fans watching on Sunday and enjoying some live golf for the first time in who can remember when?
You know what? I wasn't actually. I was playing golf myself yesterday. We got different counties here where we live, and the county that's just north of Palm Beach County has been open for golf for quite some time. So a golf course called Turtle Creek is where I play, where I've been playing for the last 6 weeks or so. But I was just, in and out of the group chat a little bit yesterday afternoon. But the guys were really excited to see golf, finally live golf. So that was really cool.
We've missed it terribly watching Sundays, the European Tour or the Sunshine Tour, the PGA Tour. It's a ritual every week on our television screens. Yeah. What about from the playing side? Are you missing it desperately, or is it quite nice to have a bit of a break?
Well, I must say, it's been nice to be off a little bit. Last year, I was very, very busy. With the President's Cup at the end of the year, there was a lot of traveling going on, a lot of commitments that I had to do last year. I turned 50 last year in October. So there were quite a few things that I had to kind of clean up before I started my senior debut. And then I really started having fun on the Champions Tour. I had my last tournament I played was a win of all things. I haven't won a tournament in I think 7 years, on any tour. So that was really nice. So I was really looking forward to playing a lot of golf. And it's been amazing that since March, since we played, our last event, there's been no championship golf over here. But looking around the world, it's been incredible. I mean, I don't think anybody has lived through anything like this. And I FaceTime my parents who's at Obai, my sister who's in George, my brother there, and obviously South Africa is, I guess you guys have done the right thing, locking yourselves down, but it must be very, very tough circumstances.
With so many family members, so many close friends here in South Africa, and the heart's still very family in South Africa, do you feel a little more distant than usual? Does South Africa feel a little bit further away?
Yeah, it really does. I was fortunate enough to be there in February, played in Jeremy Ord's tournament, Dimension Data. I had a lot of fun there with the guys. And then, we left shortly after that tournament and came back to the US. So, yeah, I mean, at least I saw my family, the whole family, and that was great. But now it feels like a very distant memory. I mean, it's just been incredible the last 3-4 months, to say the least. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to be down there. But as I said, it's not as severe. It has not been as severe here in Florida as it's been in South Africa. So I've had a bit of opportunity to play golf and get outside. I don't know if that's the right thing or the wrong thing, but we've had opportunity to do things. And I didn't want to rub it in anybody's face because I truly feel what you guys have been going through down there in South Africa. And I'm really quite concerned about that.
It has been a tough time for all of us, but part of what has sustained us has been sporting memories and a lot of golfing nostalgia. And so a number of your former triumphs have been cropping up on SuperSport over the last while as we look back fondly. I know what my favourite Ernie Els memory is, but if I were to ask you, people automatically think, oh, it must be one of the majors or possibly a President's Cup. If there was one particular tournament for any particular reason that you'd say, Dan, go and watch this one because this is really special to me, what would that be?
Wow, that's a hell of a question. I still think the very first major at Oakmont was really something that set me up. But even before that, winning really one of my first big events was the South African Open in 1992. I was very much in a different weight class. Okay, I was maybe at least a middleweight or even a lightweight back then. I'm very much a heavyweight right now, but that one still really rings a bell with me because it really got me into some events in Europe, especially, and then eventually in the US. That was really the board that I needed to springboard me up into bigger things. And I got my European Tour card and then qualified for the US Open in '94, which I won. So the two real special ones is that SA Open and then the '94 US Open.
You'll be forever remembered as one of golf's greats. But you're also going to be remembered, and possibly even more for the golf one day, for what you've done in a philanthropy space, because what you and Liesl have done with autism has been staggering. I think we sometimes lose sight of just what an impact you've had on our understanding of autism. That could be the end of our conversation about charity for this evening, Ernie, but there is one more because you've been incredibly kind. Grant Hepburn and the Golf RSA team have set up the Golf Help Fund. I know Rurik Goebel, who often caddies for you when you're out in South Africa, has also been part of the process. And you've been incredibly generous because you've donated not one but 2 rounds of golf. So 3 people will be able to join you on one occasion at the Links at Fan Court and the other up at Leopard Creek. And they'll be able to buy those items and come and play golf with you and support the Help Fund.
I really look forward to that, playing whenever that's going to happen, hopefully in December. Hopefully, who knows what the world's going to be like, but we normally come down to South Africa in December, January, and hopefully we can play golf and hopefully have a great time with whoever wants to play with us. It'll be really a wonderful time. And thank you for what Rurik and Golf RSA with Grant and everybody else involved, what they've come up with. I think it's a great idea, and a lot of people, a lot of the golfers I know from our professional side wants to help. So it'll be great to play with some new friends.
Well, come back home soon as you can. We'll be waiting with a warm welcome and a glass of wine and golf courses waiting. Our very special guest on the Dan Nicholl Show this week, Ernie Els, joining us from his home in America. We say goodbye to one of the best golfers on the planet and say hello to one of the worst golfers on the planet. Next up, it's Kevin Pietersen. Next up on this week's lockdown edition of the Dan Nicholl Show, good friend of the show. We've had him on many times, not as many as we would have liked to have. He emails me at least once a week, asking me to be back on the show, but we feed him in when we can, and very happily so. Kevin Pietersen, warm welcome to the Dan Nicholl Show.
Yeah, I know that you're struggling with numbers at the moment, so I thought, you know what, let me try and do my mate another favour here.
You're definitely in the top 35 Maritzburg College old boys we've had on the show, so we'll certainly give you that. We had Shane Warne on the show last week, and he was talking about how since he turned professional, which was about 60 years ago, this is the longest he's ever spent in one place. I'm guessing that's pretty similar for you at the moment.
We are now into our 8th week of lockdown, not seen a single person. And it's been, to be honest, Dan, it's been lovely.
You've also been a busy man because even though you're not traveling, which is very unusual, you're somebody who likes to keep himself involved. And you're also someone who changes as you grow. After your cricket career, we saw you discover golf with a passion, you discovered conservation with a huge passion, and you've now become probably the UK's most enthusiastic amateur indoor cyclist.
What else is there to do? I can't go and play golf, so the golf course is here. I mean, I don't even go out of my gates because if I go there and I see the golf course, I'm just going to get frustrated. So I don't go and have a look at that operation. But I also like to keep incredibly fit. I've got a great group of mates who spin together, train together, and it's just great for the mind to have a schedule and a structure to follow all day long.
You've become, amongst others, great mates through cycling with a new addition to your circle of acquaintance. Some pretty good rides and some great banter with Chris Froome.
Yeah, Froome, and he loves Africa. He's a Joburg boy. He loves conservation. I think that's where our first connection was. And we did a brilliant Instagram live the other day that created quite a few headlines around the world. And he's just such a nice guy. But my word, do those guys train.
Now, we've got a lot of perspective via you on how some of those top cyclists ride. We've got a lot of perspective on a lot of people through you because your other new job, and I'd like to think I've inspired you here, Kevin, to find a new space as you enter into middle age. It's Kevin Pietersen, Instagram talk show host.
They've been pretty good, haven't they? I took Dale Steyn on at the start, got Rohit Sharma, did Virat Kohli. I mean, the numbers for Virat were massive, humongous. Much bigger than anything you have ever done and anything you'll ever do in your life, Mr. Nicholl. The numbers I got on that interview are bigger than anything you'll do in your interviewing career for the rest of your career. And you cannot edit that out. And I've got some big ones next week as well. I've got some real big ones next week. So sorry about that. I won't. What time is your show?
Our show goes out at 7 o'clock, so you'll be going out at 7 o'clock as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I won't go out at 7 o'clock. I'll let 3 people watch you.
Well, for those, it's at least a dozen, and for those dozen or so who are watching, there are many reasons to watch. But one of them is to get some information on what people are up to, and the conservation space is one that people love hearing about from you because you are the greatest apostle of the world of conservation at the moment. If you haven't met Kevin before, he's the last person you want to get stuck in a lift with because he'll talk to you about rhinos for hours and hours and hours and hours. But very passionately so. And it seems we had a little conversation about this a couple of weeks ago. There are two sides to this story. On one side, crime is generally down because people are in lockdown. There's restrictions on movement, but it also means there's not money coming into conservation. And there's a difficult side to this as well. Where do we sit in South Africa, which you monitor very closely, in terms of our rhino conservation specifically and broader conservation on top of that?
Rhino conservation in South Africa. So just an update on the areas that we look after in the Kruger. They've been absolutely amazing. And amazing meaning that hardly any animals have been hit. And that's possibly due to the lockdown. Now, with the release of the lockdown and the stages at which South Africa are being released, I'm sure that that's going to go up. The poaching of bushmeat's gone up quite a bit. But that endangered species category that we are so fiercely competitive on to try and stop and to make sure it doesn't happen has been remarkably good, and it can only be put down to lockdown. But I think the bigger play, Dan, and the more interesting play is that so many people are talking about protecting the planet, talking about conservation, talking about climate change, talking about how beautiful the outside air is. And I think everybody realizes that where this virus came from and what we need to do to make sure that the virus doesn't come back again. And when you look at it that way, it's being given a clear guidance, a shining light from nature to say, guys, enough is enough. Why don't we try and live in harmony and live in harmony a little bit better? Because if we don't live in harmony better, then I'm afraid to say there's more COVIDs that are going to come.
The passion that you have for conservation doesn't take too long to see. It's a rich vein running through everything you do. And the home for that for you is your spot just off the Kruger. I'm guessing that as soon as airports are open, travel is allowed, and you can pack that suitcase, it's a trip straight out to Ngannou with the family.
Mate, you don't even understand. I've contemplated swimming. I've thought about a boat, thought about a hoverboard. I've thought about all sorts to try and get out to South Africa. And as soon as that first aeroplane takes off to Johannesburg from London, we'll be on it. 100% we'll be on it, because, man, I miss that joint so much.
It's an incredibly special place. I've been lucky to visit it briefly, and it's somewhere, as we wrap up today, that somebody who's watching at the moment perhaps will have the chance to visit themselves with their family, because in collaboration with your love of golf and your love of wildlife, you've been enormously generous, Kevin, as you have been with many spaces. You've given up Ngannou Lodge for 3 nights as part of the auction that we're supporting for the Golf RSA Help Fund. What can people look forward to, and what's in store for them when they get there?
I mean, we built it for our family. It's family friendly, kids of all ages. You'll hear the hippos all day. You'll hear the hyenas at night. You'll hear lions roaring around you. You'll be lucky enough to have Big Five. It's such a place. It's such a place. It's spacious. There's 2 swimming pools. There's anything you could ever have dreamed of is there. And I'm frustrated not to be there.
Well, I know you'll be back there soon, and somebody will be. Look out for that auction, the Golf RSA Help Fund, details on screen at the moment. It is an extraordinary place. The master bedroom has got mirrors on the ceiling. There are soft focus portraits of Piers Morgan everywhere, and a DVD of every single one of KP's great innings. So you'll be able to enjoy.
That's actually on SuperSport at the moment, isn't it? I'm hearing.
It's all we're watching at the moment. If I wasn't sick enough already, but no, they're a pleasure to watch and most enjoyable. And more importantly, thank you for that donation, Kevin. It's a very generous one, and it's helping a lot of people in South Africa who really need that support. And I know it's something you and Jess do a huge amount of. I'm really sorry. We would have been spending the week together out in the bush, raising money for conservation, raising money for rhinos. It's not going to happen this time. I know we'll be back in with it soon. But even though we're not there, I know your commitment to South African conservation doesn't change at all. And whatever we can do to keep supporting, we look forward to. So
yeah, just on that, Dan, we've in the last week we've signed off a couple of fairly big donations to some pretty cool charitable organizations. So you'll hear more of that in the next couple of weeks. But we've done some real good work in the last week or so. So yeah, it's really exciting what we've been able to give back to South Africa, help South African people, help rangers, feed kids in South Africa, and look after the people that look after the animals. So yeah, it's been the last 7 days have been absolutely brilliant from a conservation donation perspective. We've committed to some amazing stuff.
We've been in need of some good news, and there you have it. The conservation world benefiting from the tireless work of Jess and her less successful husband, who does such a wonderful job in supporting all of us. KP, thank you so much. Look forward to being back on the golf course, continuing my run of never having lost a game of golf against you, and helping to support the amazing work you do in conservation.
I'll play you for the first time anytime you want.
So there we go. Back on the show, it's been the highlight of his year by some distance. Kevin Pietersen reporting in from his small village just outside London. So this week we've had some pretty impressive golf talent on the show in the form of Ernie Els. We've also had some very average golf talent on the show in the form of Kevin Pietersen. But now we might have possibly the greatest amateur golfer we'll ever have on the Dan Nicholl Show. He played Queenwood this morning and shot 59. He then dashed round to Wentworth and shot 58. And as you can see from his outfit, he's just spent an hour in the gym doing light weights to work on his swing. Shevchenko.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm very envious, Sheva, as I always am when I speak to you, because you might have been an amazing footballer, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but you seem to be an even better golfer than you were a footballer.
Thank you very much. I actually missed my eagle putt for 57 today. Shoot 58 at Queenwood. It was disappointing round for me.
It's great if you'd be able to get out because you haven't been able to play golf for a while. We're still waiting to play golf here in South Africa. And that's just part of these really strange times. What's it been like for you and for your family over the last couple of months in London?
Yeah, we all been in this very difficult situation. We have to be locked in the house. But it's actually, for me, it was a great time with my family because in the last couple of years, I've been very involved working with national team and always travel. But now I spent some time with the family. It was great time. And of course, that this situation would lock it down for everyone. I think the people get little bit frustration, but now looks like things start to change in a better way. I'm here in London, and good news: the golf course been open. People start to go in the park, start to play a little bit sport, tennis, golf, and it's great.
There are lots of different opinions on sport as a whole and football in particular. In Scotland, they've decided to end the league and they've announced the champions, whereas in England, it looks as though football might restart. Training will begin in small groups in the next little while. If you were still playing now, if you were still at Chelsea, still playing football, would you be comfortable going back to play now?
You know what? I think is very important moment now because in Germany is open Bundesliga, and I think everyone is looking carefully how is going in the next couple weeks, and I think every country is a different situation, but most of the country in Europe they really try to open the football in any sport. I think it's very important, especially here in England, because the Premier League is such a big event, and then I think financial situation also pushing the clubs to look open and play. But another side is more important what is the government decide, and I think the FA government and all the clubs working very carefully together, try to set up some schedule and then safety stuff for all the players and then people who are going to be involved in the football. And probably we'll see in next 2 weeks some decision about what can happen here in England or in different countries like Italy, also important, Spain.
You were part of a great Milan team with Paolo Maldini. Arguably the best team in Europe at the moment would be Liverpool. They're a very complete unit. If the season had to end now, would you give Liverpool the title or do you scrap this season and start afresh?
I think the Liverpool definitely deserve to be champion and then is the best team in England and one of the best team in Europe. And I don't know what decision gonna make it FA or is in my view Liverpool deserve to be champion.
Before we let you go, Sheva, we started the conversation on golf, so let's finish it on golf. How high on the Andrii Shevchenko bucket list is traveling to South Africa to come and play some golf?
I never been in South Africa. Is one of my dream to come. I heard about some incredible golf courses, very nice, warm people there. I have a lot of friends there, and I promise you, in one of these days in the future, I'm gonna come and play. It's one of my dream.
Consider yourself my guest. My only request is you have to play with me because I'm certainly not playing against you, Sheva. Not if you're shooting 58 at Queenwood.
Thank you very much. And I promise you, I'm not going to miss my eagle putt again.
So there we go. Wrapping us up this week on the Dan Nicholl Show in lockdown with Bright Rock, one of the greatest footballers of modern times in Europe, the Ukrainian superstar, now their national manager, Andrii Shevchenko, wrapping up a show that featured Ernie Els chatting to us from Florida and Kevin Pietersen talking to us from his home in London. More of the Dan Nicholl Show in lockdown next week. Don't forget to look out for those auction items from KP and Ernie in support of the Golf RSA Help Fund. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you again next week. Good night.
Life, like the conversation, keeps changing. Get the first ever needs-matched life insurance that changes as your life changes.